My name is Hector Garcia. I'm a QuickBooks consultant and accountant. My email is hector@garciacpa.com. I'm usually really good at answering questions for anyone that has any questions about accounting or QuickBooks. I would say 90% of my questions I answer them with a video because I have such a large video library. So don't worry about sending me long, complicated questions about QuickBooks. It's fine. I'll answer them. Okay, so let's start with why enterprise, and this is called in a nutshell. Like I really kind of want this to be the high level, top view thought of mind that I want you to be thinking to see if whether or not this looks and smells like a good company to work with QuickBooks Enterprise. So these are the things that I kind of want you to have top of mind. Any business that is on the retail or wholesale industry that manages inventory, heavy inventory, I want you to think of QuickBooks Enterprise. Manufacturing facilities, manufacturing companies, I want you to think of QuickBooks Enterprise. And construction companies and contractors, I want you to think of QuickBooks Enterprise. And I'm going to deep dive a little bit later on into the specific features in why those three industries happen to be the ones that are top of mind. The other thing I want you to think about when you think of a QuickBooks Enterprise, think about multi-user. So number one, QuickBooks Enterprise can go all the way to 30 users. It has a comprehensive role and permission structure, and it was designed to work in a hosted terminal service environment. So if you can put the desktop software on the cloud or even within an internal server, work on it via remote desktop terminal services, and it works really fast, really smoothly. And then also I want you to think of large files, larger files, things like having more than 14,000 items, 14,000 customers, something like that. You have to think about QuickBooks Enterprise because QuickBooks Pro and Premier have that limitation. And also any files that are bigger than maybe 250 megabytes, or if they have 350,000 targets. So if you don't know what that means, just ask the question in the box and I'll queue it up to see if in the demo portion we can talk about how to find out how many targets does a QuickBooks desktop file have. So these are some of the frequently asked questions that I get. These are things that people email me all the time. They email me all the time, and these are the most typical ones. Number one is there a cloud version of QuickBooks Enterprise? The answer is no. Now, if you go to QuickBooks' website and you look at the pricing structure, they advertise and they market a cloud service, but QuickBooks Enterprise is a desktop software, and it can be hosted using a service like Right Networks, which is the one that Intuit partners with, or there's a plethora of other hosting services out there. And it still looks and feels like a desktop software, but it could be accessed from any computer anywhere. Okay, so the answer is no, there's no cloud version, but it is sold or packaged together with a partner called Right Networks that Intuit partners with. Is there a mobile version of QuickBooks Enterprise, or can I access QuickBooks Enterprise from a phone or a tablet? So the quick answer to that is no. Now, if you have the cloud version, or if you have it, sorry, I said that, but if you have it hosted in the cloud, technically you could open remote desktop software in your tablet and access it. But it's just the way desktop software works, you kind of need a mouse and a keyboard, so it really won't work really well on a tablet. So the answer is no. Now there's some great add-ons like Method CRM and SalesPad, and in C2 there's a whole bunch of add-ons that have great mobile functionality, but that's in addition to QuickBooks Enterprise, and it would be a third-party software. The common question I have is, can I purchase QuickBooks Enterprise as a license the same way I can go to Office Depot and buy QuickBooks Pro or QuickBooks Premier? The answer is no. QuickBooks Enterprise is a subscription-only service, and I'll explain why Intuit went to subscription, just because they added a whole bunch of benefits to it. It's a subscription-only service, so you have to pay monthly or annually for it. And if you stop paying for it, you don't have access to it anymore. So there's no purchasable license. This is a subscription only. Now, another question I have is, does QuickBooks Enterprise have any file limits, or can it handle any size business? Well, the way Intuit explains it on the website, it feels like it doesn't, but the reality is it does. In my experience, once the QuickBooks file gets to about 1 gigabyte or over 1 million targets, it starts becoming a little bit sluggish, and it does become propense to data corruption. So the answer is no, it cannot handle any business size. It will handle the top end of the small business segment and the bottom end of the middle market. So if you have a company that has $50 million in sales, 150,000 items, it may not be the right solution. So it does have a specific marketplace that it works really well in. And the company size doesn't matter, it's really the file size. So in some cases, I have clients that are really, really big, but they want to stay with QuickBooks Enterprise. So they'll create a new file, fresh file every fiscal year. And then that way, it works within the limit. So, I mean, we can have that discussion offline if you want to email me directly. I mean, there's just so many moving parts to that question to be able to answer it properly. Another question I have is QuickBooks Enterprise harder to use than QuickBooks Pro and Premier? Do I have to learn how to do something new, or is there a complex conversion process? So the answer is no. I mean, technically, there are more features to learn. So yes, I mean, there is a learning curve to understanding the additional new features, but there's no complex conversion. It's actually seamless. So you open a QuickBooks Pro Premier file in QuickBooks Enterprise, it converts automatically. None of the data gets lost. So that's actually great. And it is not harder to use. As a matter of fact, I will, at the end of the webinar, I'll show you a link, sort of a backlink that Intuit created with all the video tutorials for QuickBooks Enterprise. And it's actually really, really great for yourself or for a client. The other question I have is, well, one of the features of QuickBooks Enterprise subscription is they get free US-based support. So does the user still need an accountant, consultant, or pro advisor? The answer to that is a big, huge, resounding yes. So you are going to need a consultant, you are going to need an accountant, you're going to need a pro advisor, probably more than ever, because with the additional functionality of QuickBooks Enterprise, for sure you're going to want someone to kind of guide you through the process, how to use it, how to apply for it. So no, so don't. So although the support is great, there's a lot of limitations to the support. So that being said, I created a slide specifically for this. So I actually copy and pasted this straight from the Intuit website. The free US-based support, and there's the phone number, so you should definitely write that down, take a picture of that. The free US-based support that comes with the QuickBooks Enterprise subscription. It's a great feature. If you're an accountant or a consultant and you get someone in QuickBooks Enterprise, you can send over a lot of the basic functionality questions, installation, multi-user drama, send that back into its support team that is part of the subscription. Okay, so that's actually the great part. But there's a specific clause on the support limitation that says the plan does not cover inquiries on accounting practices, human resources, and that's alluding to the payroll service, nor does it include application consulting or live training. So I love the fact that Intuit pretty much made sure that they did that, because I never want to shoot myself in the foot and recommend someone to a software and then get myself out of the loop. But I do like the fact that they can take care of some of the basic functionality, the multi-user support, getting the software to run, to upgrade, that sort of thing. You can pass that on to Intuit's US-based support, which is on weekdays, 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. Pacific time. Now, there's 24/7 tech support for QuickBooks, but the US-based has that strict time. So I want you to make sure you know about it, and also it is a feature of the subscription. Now, let's talk about pricing. Pricing is a really important conversation to have up front, because for years, Intuit has severely underpriced their QuickBooks Pro and Premier products. So they've been teaching the marketplace that QuickBooks is a real cheap thing for the value that it gives you. It's a lot of value for the price. So when QuickBooks Enterprise comes in and there's such a huge gap in pricing, people get a huge sticker shock. So anytime people are thinking about, hey, how much will QuickBooks Enterprise cost me, more or less, there are three elements I want you to think about. Number one is number of users, and that's typically going to be between 1 and 10 users, or a 30-user subscription. That all has a different price structure. subscription level, whether it's going to be gold, silver, or platinum, and I'll explain those a little bit later on, and then whether it's going to be hosted or non-hosted through Intuit's partner called Right Networks. So I want to give you some examples of pricing. So for example, the MSRP, and the way I'm giving you the MSRP because I don't know when you'll be watching this. If you're watching this recording in August, September next year, I want to make sure that these prices are based on today's MSRP. And there's always promotions, first year promotions, 20%, 10%, 40%, and there's different promotions throughout the year. So I want to make sure that I don't mention the promotions. You call the sales team and ask for the promotions, or just email me if you prefer to email instead of calling Intuit sales team. But the current MSRP for silver, which is the basic core QuickBooks Enterprise, is $1,000 per year for non-hosted, or $120 per month for hosted. So to simplify things, all the hosted subscriptions, I have them in a monthly payment plan in terms of the way I'm displaying it, and all the non-hosted are going to be quoted per year. But you could also pay the per year in a monthly payment for the non-hosted plans. So that kind of gives you an idea more or less. And if we actually go up to a 5-user, you start seeing that, for example, a 5-user platinum, it's $500 a month for hosted 5-user versus $3,400 a year for non-hosted. And then you got the 10-user as an example. And again, don't worry, you're going to get a copy of this slide. As a matter of fact, I'm going to send you a copy of the slide and the entire price sheet for every single user configuration, because I figure that would be useful for you to have a conversation about pricing with your client or somebody from your team if you want to upgrade for your business. Now, the subscription levels, the easiest way to explain them is the silver is the complete QuickBooks, the traditional QuickBooks Enterprise software, plus that US-based support that I was talking about, plus Data Protect, which is basically a service that automatically backs up your QuickBooks file once you enable it. And if your data gets corrupted into it, it will help you with corruption repair. It comes with advanced reporting and obviously the free upgrades to the newer versions, 2018, 2019, etc. And there's always new features coming out in the new year versions. The gold will be the same as silver, plus an enhanced payroll subscription that normally standalone is it's almost $600. Plus it has direct deposit for unlimited employees, and usually the difference between silver and gold is only about $300. So it's actually a steal for the people that use Enterprise plus the payroll subscription. And then we got the platinum, which is just like the gold, a silver plus payroll, plus the advanced inventory and advanced inventory pricing modules, which we'll discuss a little bit later on. And if we don't have time to go into detail, you can look at the past recordings that have in detail how those functions work. Okay, let's go ahead and take a quick break and run a polling question. So that will also allow me to drink a little bit of water and read the questions while we're at it. So just a quick polling question, answer everything that applies, please. So while you answer the polling question, David is asking, what if you don't want payroll, but you do want advanced inventory or advanced pricing? So that, David, that would still be the platinum subscription. You actually are not paying anything extra for the payroll that comes with it. So even if you don't need the payroll, if you don't use the payroll, you need the platinum if you want to use advanced inventory or advanced pricing. Let's see, Eric says, is there a CPE for this? The answer is no. These are non-CPE webinars. Scott is asking, for manufacturing inventory situation, does it make sense to go with Enterprise or third-party add-on for inventory? So Scott, that's a great question, and I really don't want to answer it unless I qualify it by understanding what the client's needs are. But I would say for light manufacturing, it works great. But if you really want a little bit heavier manufacturing, you may want to start looking at Fishbowl Manufacturing Edition or one called Mises. Those are the two big manufacturing add-ons. The thing is that those will cost you more than QuickBooks Enterprise itself. So you will pay QuickBooks Enterprise plus another maybe $10,000 for the other software. So Scott, is something to just kind of think about. We would have to look at the specific situation to answer that. So, but for light manufacturing, it would work. It would work fairly okay. Okay, let's see. Okay, so let me go ahead and close the polling question, and I'll share the results real quick. So it looks like 74% of you are mostly working with QuickBooks Pro, Premier, and Accountant. And that's actually pretty good. A lot of people are working with QuickBooks Enterprise already, so that's great. And you can definitely see that QuickBooks Online, it's on the rise. I don't want to make any comparisons of QuickBooks Enterprise and with QuickBooks Online, because they're technically not even comparable, not even in the same wavelength. So I'm just trying to compare more of like the QuickBooks Pro Premier to QuickBooks Enterprise. Okay, hosted versus non-hosted, real quick. So hosted means that you're going to pay in addition to the software, you're going to pay for a service that will host the desktop software on the cloud, in which you can have any computer with even a Mac or a Chromebook with a free software called Microsoft Remote Desktop Connection, and that allows you to connect to it. So it is almost like a cloud-based software, but it's important to know that it's still a desktop software. So it'll still look and feel like a desktop software. And the ones called non-hosted or local, they're referring to the traditional QuickBooks that you install in your own server and you manage your own local area network, which in fact could be even connected to the cloud if your IT people are sophisticated enough to do that. So you're not limited to having your data on the cloud, by having to have Intuit's hosting service. You can technically do that yourself, but if you would have to know about that IT part. Okay, now QuickBooks Desktop versions, to talk about the whole gamut of it. QuickBooks Desktop versions are going to come in I'm going to call it 5 flavors. There's actually 6 because there's the gold, but I'm going to skip gold for now. So we have QuickBooks Pro, we have QuickBooks Premier. Sometimes they have QuickBooks Premier Manufacturing Edition, QuickBooks Premier Contractor Edition, QuickBooks Premier Nonprofit Edition. Anything that has the word edition afterwards, that's basically just QuickBooks Premier. Now there's also QuickBooks Accountant, formerly known as Premier Accountant. So I'm going to kind of bundle Accountant and Premier into sort of the same category. Accountant you can no longer buy in public. Like you actually have to pay an annual subscription to have access to QuickBooks Accountant, or you have to buy it through a reseller that would sell that, because QuickBooks Accountant is no longer a public SKU. It's only for the Pro Advisor program. Then we have QuickBooks Enterprise Silver, and like I said, I'm skipping gold for now. And then we have the Platinum, which is the one that has the advanced inventory. And QuickBooks for Mac, I don't know if I should call it discontinued. I mean, I know that the last version they created was by 2016, but I assume that Intuit is still supporting it. I actually don't have any clients on QuickBooks Mac anymore. And I'm discouraging people from buying it for new installations, just because if no new versions are coming out, it makes me feel that it's being phased out. But I don't want to say that because I haven't read an announcement of Intuit officially saying we're phasing it out, we're not supporting it. So I'm putting discontinued question mark on it. I'm just discouraging anyone from doing that. If you're on a Mac, either work with a hosted version of QuickBooks or QuickBooks Online. It's my opinion. Okay, now let's go on to a core feature comparison. This is the stuff that you really want to pay attention to, because this stuff is really, really important. Okay, let's go through the comparison of QuickBooks Premier in comparison to Pro. So I'm not going to spend any time discussing what QuickBooks Pro have. I'm just going to discuss what QuickBooks Premier has that is worth highlighting compared to Pro. So one of it is we can go to a 5-user setup instead of a 3-user setup, which is the limitation for Pro. That's actually sometimes is good. For smaller companies, from 3 to 5, it's a huge difference. QuickBooks Premier can do inventory assembly. So actually QuickBooks Premier can do manufacturing, very, very light manufacturing, but it can do manufacturing. It can manage multiple units of measure, and I got several videos on that, so you may want to check out that, because that's a world unto itself, just dealing with multiple units of measure. It can do sales orders, which is really important for back order tracking, and it can convert from an estimate or a sales order to a PO, which is very, very common for custom orders or drop ships. It can do batch invoicing for billable items, so really important for like professional services that work with a lot of billable items. It can do forecast reports and cash flow projections. It has a balance sheet by class, which in some larger companies where they have different departments, balance sheet by class is crucial, because QuickBooks Pro only has P&L by class. It has whoops, I went to the next slide. It has inventory center, which is a one place where you can manage all your inventory. It can do minimum and maximum reorder points. And then it has the specialty reports for industries like contractors, wholesale manufacturing, retail, nonprofit, and professional services. Now let's move on to QuickBooks Accountant. That's that SKU that I told you you really can't buy in the public anymore. You can't purchase it unless you're affiliated with annual Pro Advisor subscription. But Accountant is actually a really cool SKU, and I recommend a lot of my clients to Accountant, even though they're not accountants, because it has a couple of really important things. One is Accountant can open two company files at the same time. So if you got two companies and you're trying to reconcile maybe an intercompany loan, it's really useful to have them open next to each other so you can compare them. So that's actually really, really huge in my opinion. It has the client data review tools, which is a whole bunch of tools dedicated to helping accountants clean up the QuickBooks file. Again, not very important for end users, but some of the stuff in there is useful. You can open an accountant's copy or a period copy, which is great for like audits. So again, it's mostly for an accountant. It does the batch reclassify, which is great for accountants and end users. If end users learn how to use it, it's actually a great tool. It has batch enter transactions, which is great. As a matter of fact, I will discuss batch enter transactions on another webinar today in about an hour and a half. So you want to stay tuned. I'm going to send you the link of that. I'm going to be talking about that feature specific, that's in depth, which is copy and pasting data from Excel. It can do batch delete, which is still kind of limited to invoices and bills, I believe. But they're expanding on that tool. Batch delete sometimes is useful, and it has the fixed asset manager and the statement writer. So that's the accountant edition versus the Premier edition. And again, that's not all the features, but it's most of the important ones. Now let's move on to QuickBooks Enterprise now. So now we're going to get into the big reason why we're in this webinar. So the whole 30 minutes is meant to premise this piece right here. So when comparing to QuickBooks Pro Premier Accountant, Enterprise has one of the things that is huge for me, the ability to consolidate or combine multiple QuickBooks files into one to create one combined financial statement in Excel. Now I got two videos on that because they're like 20-25 minutes each in YouTube, just because it's a kind of a complex process. You have to think about chart of accounts matching. I mean, there's a whole bunch of moving parts, but that feature is great. It really automates consolidation. And a lot of my enterprise clients, they have multiple companies. They have a real estate company, they have their international company, whatever. Also, you can go all the way up to 30 users. So really, really important. Premier and Accountant is limited to 5. It has a restricted user access. There's about 115 activity areas in which you can choose which users can view only, can edit, can create, can print, that sort of thing. As a matter of fact, the last episode I did on Enterprise Expert is on YouTube. The whole hour I spent just on that specific feature. We got the larger file sizes. As I mentioned earlier, QuickBooks Enterprise can manage larger file sizes, larger list sizes. It can do more custom fields. Definitely one of my favorite features of QuickBooks Enterprise, very much underutilized. It can do 30 total custom fields versus a limit of 12 on the Pro Premier Accountants queue. And you can also have custom drop-down menus. And by the way, I have clients in which that one feature, it's do or die. That's the reason they went to Enterprise, because if you have a lot of sales reps or whatever loading data into QuickBooks and they make a mistake on how they load it, those drop-down menus limits the choices. So it limits the probabilities of making a mistake there. So I actually really, really like that feature because of that. So I do have a couple of webinars on that, or a couple of videos on that, so you can look into that. There's also default classes on items. So you can actually set up an item, a name, or an account. The last one was account, not classes. You can set up a default class, so it shows up automatically when that item, name, or account is used. So it does speed up the class process. And then there's advanced reporting, which I have about 7 videos on that in YouTube. And by the way, that's a feature by itself that will take you days and hours to learn because it's very complex, but it is a super feature within QuickBooks Enterprise Silver. I do have my opinions about the return investment of the time it takes versus what you get from it, but it is a great step towards advanced reporting nonetheless. And then we have the platinum subscription. Like I said, I mentioned I'm skipping gold just to combine them. Platinum subscription will come with the the enhanced payroll with a free direct deposit, so it's all included. And then it has the advanced inventory features, which came out first in 2013, and they've been upgrading the functionality since then, which is basically USB barcode support for receiving and selling, multiple warehouse locations, so you can have inventory tracking per physical location, bin location tracking, so if you want to have one inventory SKU across multiple places within your warehouse and you want to know where it is or in what bin it is, it has that feature. It has FIFO inventory valuation, and I got a video just on that explaining FIFO versus average cost, because QuickBooks Pro Premier accountant work on average cost, and some companies need FIFO, first in, first out. And then serial number or lot number tracking, probably the number one reason why most of my clients end up going with Enterprise Platinum is because of the lot number tracking. I deal with manufacturers, medical companies, tile companies, in which the lot number is extremely important, especially food manufacturers. I mean, you name it, you have to have that lot number. And then also a new feature that came out in 2014 called advanced pricing, that allows you to create conditional pricing discounts or conditional fixed pricing based on multiple elements, and also volume discounts. So you can set a price for a product if they buy 100, if they buy 1,000, if they buy 50,000, whatever it is, you can actually change that with the advanced pricing module, which is actually really, really useful. Okay, let me take another quick break real quick so I can drink a little bit of water um, and, uh, and um, and go through the next couple slides. So this, just let me know more or less whether you already are a reseller, because obviously if you already are a reseller, I don't want to spend too much time talking about becoming a QuickBooks reseller. The purpose of this webinar is not to encourage you to become a reseller. As a matter of fact, it's simply to explain to you about QuickBooks Enterprise and then give you some resources to learn more, or where to call to get expert support from Intuit, from their sales engineering team about QuickBooks Enterprise. However, I understand some of you maybe want to do the reselling, so you wanna spend the time learning the software because you actually want to recommend it and get a commission for it. So if you do, I'll send it to the reseller team. I'll send your contact so they can send you information about that. Okay. So that would let me know more or less if you already are a reseller. I'm not going to send your information to the reseller team. Okay, let's see. Somebody says, I just joined the reseller team last week. Okay, good for you, Michelle. Awesome. Somebody says, thank you for providing information, high quality presentations for the ProAdvisor community. Bill, thank you for the compliment. Karen says, Mac has been effectively discontinued starting 2019. So there was an announcement. Okay. So, okay. Thank you for that. I'm not endorsing the announcement, but I believe you, Karen, but just making sure that I'm reading your comments there. Okay. All right. So we got about a minute half in. We have 81% of the votes. I'm going to go ahead and close the polling question. Thank you very much. There was only about 13% of you in the reseller program. And for the ones that are not interested, don't worry, I won't send you any information about that. The ones that are, I'll put you in contact with the Intuit folks that run that department. And then you go from there on the reselling part. Okay, now let's move on to industry specific. So what I want to now is break down the QuickBooks Enterprise features based on the industry. So these are the things that I kind of want, and I already mentioned some of these, but this is what I want you to think about when you're working with a company that's on this specific industry. So anyone dealing with wholesale, maybe retail, or anything with inventory, these are the features you want to think about. Automatic markup and margin tracking. So what that is, it allows you to set a specific margin or markup on an item. So if there is a change of the cost, if there's a change in the cost, so if you put a PO together and you receive the cost and the price goes up, with the automatic markup and margin, it will change the sales price. That way your margin is protected. So that's actually an extremely valuable piece, and QuickBooks Enterprise users have been asking for this for years, and they added this in 2014, and it's absolutely fabulous feature. For some clients, this is one of the most important things. Also, you can see the cost on your sales forms. So in your sales orders and your invoices, you can see the cost. In the past, you could only see the cost in an estimate. So they actually expanded the capacity or the ability for you to see the cost. You don't have to show it to the client, just for the user to see it, just to make sure they're not selling anything under cost. For wholesale manufacturer, sorry, for wholesale inventory, it's also important that QuickBooks Enterprise has the ability to store 750 ship to addresses per customer. Pro and Premier is limited to 50. So when you deal with wholesale or a lot of product, many a times you have one customer that has multiple shipping locations, and for some customers 50 isn't enough, so Enterprise can do up to 750 ship to addresses per customer. Another great feature they added in 2015 is the ability to calculate subtotals of any number field. So if I have the quantity field, or maybe a custom field with a weight, something like that, I actually can create a subtotal item that will make a calculation of all those custom fields with numbers or the quantities. So actually very, very useful for people that track maybe the weight of the product or something like that through a custom field. Okay. Um, the other feature for wholesale and inventory is the ability to resort columns on sales orders. So they added this in 2016. Now, once you create a sales order, an estimate, an invoice, you can then resort it by item name, by quantity, by description, by price. And you can also search within the form. So for a lot of wholesale clients, they end up having these invoices that are 3, 4, 5 pages long, and it takes forever to scroll up and down and find something. Now they added search functionality within the form, which is awesome. Now, for companies that have a very large item list, a lot of inventory parts, there's a find and select items feature within the sales form. So within the invoice, within the sales order, you can do a search, and you can search within a manufacturer's part number, within a custom field, within a description, within the part number. So it quickly helps you find items for you to put them in your sales order or in your invoice. So that's actually an enterprise only feature that's really, really powerful for large item lists. You can also, and they added this in 2014, you can add a sales rep on your bills, checks, and credit cards, so you can track the cost by sales rep as well. Very, very useful, highly requested feature for the last couple of years from QuickBooks Enterprise users. And of course, advanced inventory and advanced pricing, which deserve a whole hour by itself. And like I said, in my YouTube channel with the link I gave you earlier, there's a 1 hour webinar that goes detailed on all of those features. But that industry, wholesale inventory, for obvious reasons, makes you think of the advanced inventory features that are on the platinum subscription. And then something they added in I believe it was 2012 or 2013, was the ability to add an item picture in your inventory center. So you can actually add pictures to items that may help the end user understand what is it that they're selling. It yet doesn't allow you to put them on an invoice or an estimate, but at least for internal purposes, it would allow you to do that, to put a picture. Okay, so let's switch to a different industry. Let's talk about manufacturing and which specific features cater to the manufacturing industry. So we have a feature called Where Used. They added this in 2014 that basically allows you to find a specific component that is used in multiple assemblies or multiple bill of materials that maybe is being replaced by another component. So in a fell swoop, you can choose the replacement component, and QuickBooks will automatically in batch change every single bill of materials that had the old component, replacing it with a new component. This was a very useful thing they added in 2014 that was highly requested from manufacturing companies. Then we have shortage reports. Basically, if you try to create an assembly and you're missing items, before they added the shortage reports, which they added them in 2015, it'll basically give you an error saying that you can't make enough. But now you can actually print a report that tells you exactly what you're missing before you build that assembly, so it allows you to plan for purchasing. There's also automatic POs, so you can actually create minimum and maximum reorder points on your inventory items. And if you are below a minimum, you can actually run a report that will do an automatic PO and create a PO with a preferred vendor to load you up to the maximums. Very important for inventory companies and manufacturing companies. Then you have editable bill of materials. Basically, with QuickBooks Enterprise, you can change your bill of materials on the fly while creating a build assembly. With QuickBooks Premier, you would have to get out of the build assembly, edit the BOM, and then go back to it. And sometimes there are short runs of assemblies in which you want to just make a change on the fly and not change the entire bill of materials. There's also automatically build sub-assemblies, which means that if you have an assembly within an assembly, so if you have a two-part work in progress manufacturing process, so where you create you convert the product into one thing first, and then later on, maybe in a different day or a different week or a different month, you convert it one more time. You can actually automatically nest the sub assemblies, and in one button it can create the master assembly and everything under it, as long as you have the inventory in stock. So that's actually really helpful for having nested assemblies or assemblies within assemblies. Then we have, as I mentioned earlier, the quantity and numerical custom field subtotals. Very commonly needed for manufacturing, because manufacturers a lot of times work with things like items per box or weight or dimensions or something that's useful for the person that's grabbing the product from the manufacturing facility into whatever distribution center they're going to bring it to. And also the EDI integration. QuickBooks Enterprise has partnered with an EDI software company, and there's a free integration package that if you have a customer that wants to place their POs digitally or something like that, the EDI service will then convert them into a sales order for you automatically. So it's actually really useful for my manufacturing clients. I got about 2 manufacturing clients on the EDI process. And for construction and contractors, I mean, I'll tell you one thing. QuickBooks Pro works really well for construction and contractors. I mean, really well. However, there are 2 features, there are just 2 reports that Enterprise has that QuickBooks Pro and Premier don't have. One is called the Committed Cost Report, which will basically give you a report of all your costs of things that are sitting on a PO, so non-posting, and time sitting on a timesheet. So because in QuickBooks, in order for you to have job costs, you have to have not a PO, you have to have a bill or a check. And you can't have a timesheet, you have to have a paycheck. So the Committed Cost Report allows you to see the cost for non-posting transactions, which is really useful. And a true work in progress summary report, which QuickBooks Premier doesn't even have. QuickBooks Premier has a cost to complete report, which kind of works, but you have to make some manual adjustments in Excel. So finally, QuickBooks Enterprise has gotten their stuff together and built a true work in progress report that does the correct percentage of completion revenue accrual process. And that's an entire webinar, entire conversation, and there is a webinar recorded just on work in progress percentage of completion, so check that one out. And restricted user access for construction companies, really important, because there's a lot of people that are doing just estimations. They're putting estimates together in QuickBooks, and my construction clients, they want that. They don't want them to see the financials. They don't want them to see actual job costs. All they want them to do is create those estimates, and that's it. So I find that restricted user access, which is useful for any industry really, but for construction it works really well. Now, for professional service providers, typically they use a lot of classes. So the default class by item, name, or account becomes really useful. The custom fields we talked about, again, for a lot of custom sales and custom professional services. There's also a lot of revenue sharing and commission reports. So those additional custom fields become very useful. The ability to disallow sales if there's overdue invoices or disallow sales beyond the credit limit is a huge QuickBooks Enterprise feature that works really well for professional service providers, and the ability to track billable mileage and comprehensive billable and unbillable time reports, which some of them are in Premier, but not all of them. Not everything the enterprise the enterprise has is in Premier. Okay, now moving on. We talked about the industries. Let's talk about the multi-user functionality that I talked about earlier in terms of why you want to think of QuickBooks Enterprise for multi-user. In QuickBooks Pro Premier, even in multi-user mode, you cannot adjust inventory, delete items, change sales tax rates, edit custom fields, set closing dates, make deposits for multiple users, or change any list orders. In QuickBooks Enterprise, even in multi-user mode, you can do all these things. So the way they structure QuickBooks Enterprise is a little bit more flexible for making changes in multi-user mode. So that's actually, believe it or not, a really important slide. Now, another general reason why I recommend QuickBooks Desktop, I don't want to talk about QuickBooks Enterprise, but QuickBooks Desktop in general, is because of custom reports. Custom reports in QuickBooks Desktop versus QuickBooks Online or any other accounting software I've seen that's within the same price range of QuickBooks, QuickBooks Desktop is fabulous for. So that link you see there, the bit.ly link that says custom reports, I'm going to go ahead and just show you something real quick. So I have a cheat sheet. So if you see that link that is there, and again, you download the slides or you're going to get an email if you're watching this live with all these links. I created a cheat sheet that took me, hours and hours and hours to do. So I hope that you appreciate it, that you have this resource available for you. This cheat sheet that you see here on the screen, it's basically data field by data field, and there's an analysis on whether or not this field is available in a summary report as a row, column, filter, or in a transaction detail report as a field, total by, or filter. And each of these, if you hover over them, gives you a description of what each of those data fields are. Now, if you've never built a custom report in QuickBooks before, this is something that is basically total Chinese. But if you ever try to build a custom report and you're trying to figure out, what do all these fields mean? Are they available? Or maybe you're thinking through a data entry process consulting job with your client, trying to figure out whether or not this data can even be pulled in a report, this cheat sheet becomes really, really useful. And again, email me if there's something missing or there's ways to improvement. I definitely going to take on, email me. The email's there on that. I'll take on any suggestions because I do want that spreadsheet to become sort of like the standard of custom report cheat sheet. So I think a lot of you will provide tons of value in terms of adding more things. If I'm missing something, I'm not perfect, very close to it, but but I may be missing something. It took me a long time to do. The other thing I want to talk to you about is advanced reporting. Again, advanced reporting needs literally technically a series of videos. So I have about 6 or 7 videos in my YouTube channel under a playlist called QuickBooks Enterprise Advanced Reporting. And I have all the videos I created on advanced reporting, including I added some of the Intuit backlinks for the training videos that they have, in which they don't have public links for, but I found they're on a website somewhere. And there's 2-3 hour videos for advanced reporting. So you got about 9 hours of videos on all advanced reporting. So if you really wanted to get deep into advanced reporting, that's going to be a great resource for you. And that's that bit.ly/QBAR videos. That's all case sensitive, by the way, just in case you're trying to get this to work. It does work. I'm 100% sure the link works. I got some people saying it doesn't work. It is case sensitive. So I'm 100% sure it works. If it's not working, it's because you're not paying attention to one of the capital letters in there. And then I also wanted to just quickly mention that even though QuickBooks Enterprise has some pretty interesting reporting features within, my favorite add-on for QuickBooks Enterprise is called QCube. So if you go to qcube.net, that will take you straight into their website. I'll just show you that real quick. And unfortunately, one of the things I kind of dislike, there isn't a whole lot of features on QCube. A lot of videos and training materials, but it is a very inexpensive add-on. I mean, $425 for one user, and you will be perplexed in how amazing the capabilities of QCube are. But again, you're gonna have to scrap around for resources. There's maybe a couple of videos in YouTube. It is one of my projects to start creating some QCube resources. The thing is that it's very time consuming, so I'll be doing that at some point in the future. But that is one of my favorite add-ons if the QuickBooks desktop built-in reporting features are not powerful enough. Okay, we got about 8 minutes left until top of the hour. So what I like to do is I like to answer some questions. And one of the questions I had was, what is a target, or how do I find out how many targets does my QuickBooks file have? So if you're looking at QuickBooks Pro or QuickBooks Premier, you hit Control-1 on your keyboard, and this pops up, and this will tell you your file size, and this will tell you the number of targets. So normally, if number of targets is over 300,000, you may be in trouble, and the file will start working sluggish. So you may want to think about moving to Enterprise. Or the file size. Normally, I try to keep under 250 megabytes, 300 megabytes for the file size. Otherwise, I start telling people to move to QuickBooks Enterprise. Okay, let's see what else. What else questions are here? Let me go through them. Let me see. Some people saying, oh, okay, some people are saying that the links. I wanted to just make sure that we're okay with this. So I'm going to go to http://bit.ly/QB custom reports. Okay, yep, you are right. I've made a mistake. I gave you the wrong link. It is QB custom reports. Whoops. Yep. So sorry. Okay, it is QB custom reports. That's actually the bit.ly link that takes it to that spreadsheet that I sent. So thank you for clarifying that. That was my mistake on the data entry side. Okay, so thank you for that. Let's see. I don't think there's any more pending questions. Okay, so let's go to additional resources. This is actually also really, really important. Okay, I have another master spreadsheet, and this link, I think this link is fine, which is bit.ly/QBOVSQBES is the one you're seeing on the screen here. And that one will take you to this other spreadsheet. I love this one. This one actually also took me a couple of months to build. So basically what I did is I took every single feature that is comparable. So not all the features in QuickBooks, the ones that are comparable, and I compare them feature by feature. There's about 100 in here or so, 141 features, and I actually compare them whether or not they're available in QuickBooks Online, QuickBooks Enterprise, or QuickBooks Pro Premier Accountant SKU. And some of them have notes in there, like you see, like only one SKU has it, or if there's limitations to them. So I also want you to have that resource available and print that. That'll be a couple of pages long, because that's also really important to have. That feature list. So that's what that link is. Now I want to give you a couple of links, the ones you see here. And by the way, I will email you the updated slides with the link correction on that one, so you have it. So I want to give you, want to show you this one real quick. So if you actually go to this link here, enterprisesuite.intuit.com/customer service, whatever, the one you're seeing on the screen here that I'm highlighting. So if you go there and you click on productivity tools, and then you click on training videos, okay, and then you have to log in. So you have to have an enterprise subscription. You need to have a Pro Advisor subscription, one of those things. So once you log in, you will see, let me just log in real quick here. And of course, asking me to check, but I won't get into it. But once you click in there, training videos, and then you log in, and you have to have QuickBooks Enterprise subscription, you go in there, and there's a whole slew of videos available, which is what they call client training. Okay, so definitely something recommend you check out. The other resources I wanted to show you here is this one. Okay, this link that's here that says test drive Right Networks hosted QuickBooks Enterprise sample file. This is one of the most useful things I have. Like if I'm doing consulting on the fly with one of my clients, and I want to see if the internet access is good enough, strong enough for them to work in a hosted environment. Or also I want to do a quick demonstration of QuickBooks Enterprise. I go to this link, I'll pick one of these industries, let's say for example, contractor edition, and basically it will run QuickBooks within the website. So they don't have to have anything installed. It will run it through it using the hosted service that QuickBooks has. So it allows you to play with QuickBooks. It allows you to test it out, maybe do a demonstration on it, and it also allows you to test the speed in which QuickBooks works, in your client's office or whatever, just to see if the hosting solution works for you. So notice that I'm running this within a web browser. And this will actually give you a good idea of the experience you will have working with QuickBooks desktop hosted. Because that's actually the big thing now. Intuit is pushing it quite a bit because they did a very big partnership with Right Networks, and they're actually combining price-wise. They're combining hosting and QuickBooks Enterprise at the same time because they're seeing so many people request cloud and they're going to QuickBooks Online, but QuickBooks Online just doesn't have the capabilities that QuickBooks Enterprise has. So this is like the best thing that they were able to come up with in the middle. So this is the phone number I want you to write down if you want to ask someone from the Intuit top tier enterprise sales team about features of QuickBooks Enterprise. That's the phone number to call. That's through Intuit. That's Intuit's number. That doesn't call me. I won't answer that. I don't work there. But if for whatever reason you want to email me a question about it, I would, as long as it's answerable, Hector at GarciaCPA.com, maybe some case, some issue with some client trying to figure out whether or not it works, email me and I'll gladly answer your QuickBooks Enterprise questions. All right, the next episode, stay tuned, please, because I want to tell you about some webinars I got coming up. The next episode we'll have on this enterprise expert theme will be working with large item lists. So that will be next month. I'll be talking about importing, modifying, and organizing large item lists in batch. It's very, very useful thing to learn there, especially with inventory manufacturing clients. And then I got a whole bunch of webinars that I'm involved with. Today, for example, in exactly 1 hour, I'll be doing one on converting and importing bank transactions into QuickBooks. We'll talk about converting bank data from PDF, Excel, whatever into QuickBooks. So we'll discuss that. That's going to be exactly in 1 hour. It's free. You must register. HectorGarcia.com/webinars. Today at 4 p.m. Eastern, I'll have a guest speaker, Scott Citron, who's a PR expert. We're not going to be talking about QuickBooks at all. We'll be talking about marketing strategies, Google Ads, content marketing, WordPress blog. So if you're thinking about doing that sort of thing for your business, definitely check out that webinar. And then next week on Thursday, we'll have QB Power Hour, which is the premier webinar that I'm involved with. I mean, we have over 600-700 people log in weekly for that. And we'll talk about document management for QuickBooks Online, and we'll talk about HubDoc. And then on August 2nd, we'll have Tax Power Hour. We'll talk about retirement plans and other deferred income strategies. And on the same August 2nd, we'll be doing pivot tables with guest speaker Jeff Lanning, an expert in all things Excel. And that's it. So you go to HectorGarcia.com/webinars to register for that. And stay connected. Check out the Facebook group called Enterprise Expert and continue the conversation there. Again, if you're interested on purchasing or knowing more about QuickBooks Enterprise, that's Intuit's phone number that they recommended me to give out for this particular webinar. Anyway, thank you very much. It's top of the hour. Thank you for attending, and I think the timing was perfect. Have a wonderful day.